podcast starts.
Listeners, welcome. If this is your first time listening to the show, and if you've heard us before, welcome back. And thanks for sticking with us. This show talks about horror in film, TV, other media, other items which we like to think of as adjacent to horror, and sometimes other things from our lives which we'd like to talk about just because that's who we are. Our discussions aim to be fun, intelligent, and hopefully useful if your interest in horror text comes from a creative or I hate saying the word academic perspective, but be warned, we do tend to swear occasionally, and if it's anything less offensive than the C word, it won't get bleeped. So you're not going to say the C word tonight, are you, Ian?
Fuck no.
Point well made. So therefore we're probably not safe for any work you may currently be allowed to go into. This is the first of our two-part finale to this series of the podcast before we go on a bit of a spring break. So we're going to be casting our minds back across everything we talked about over the last year and just adding things if we want to add things. I am TD Velasquez in Greater Manchester, but you, as always, can call me Dan. I have the great pleasure of being joined by three co-hosts who have seen me and kept me sane through much of this year. Firstly, we have
Ian, who's currently really, really ill, but not from COVID-19, according to the lateral flow test I've just taken. But if I sneeze and cough and generally splutter, it's blame my children because they're germ. I'm in Cheshire.
Bless you, Ian. And we're also joined by
Kirsty, Warrow, tired in Telford.
Excellent. Onomatopoeic.
Yeah.
And also by
Stella in Manchester, and I'm not going to mention the weather.
Excellent. Let's keep away from that topic. Because he just wouldn't be British for us to complain about anything.
Complain.
And and seeing as we've been talking about how ill some of us are, I'm just going to mention Howard. Normally, we'd have a little bag of death segment with Howard that I could edit into this episode later, but we've not been able to record one this week because Howard's just had his COVID-19 jab and he's had a bit of reaction to it. So he's not very well. I've just posted him a packet of Hammer Film DVDs to cheer him up.
Oh.
So
Get well soon, Howard.
Yeah, get well soon.
Yeah, Howard.
Yes. Certainly. So hopefully by the time this episode drops, he will be feeling tons better already.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, welcome, folks. This is the first of our finale. We started this at the start of the pandemic, and here we are. Oh, I'm not going to say at the end of the pandemic. Here we are hoping that if we have a bit of a break, by the time we come back, maybe the pandemic will be on its way out. But for the moment, perhaps not. But we've never missed a week. It's not always been all of us, but the
Basically, we'll come back
has...
when the next lockdown kicks in.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make that promise. We'll promise to our listeners that if they have to be locked down again, we'll be here to comfort them and keep them company.
We are that silver lining.
Yes. I think it's important to note that Dan has not missed a week.
Yeah, Dan's not missed a week.
Dan's not missed a week. That's the important bit.
Yeah.
Slackers.
Well, I mean,
the glue of this podcast.
As my wife will tell you, I've hardly missed a week either. She's quite glad that this will be the end for a while.
I thought you were going to say she's quite glad that you've hardly missed a week.
No. Yeah, I wasn't sure where that was going.
She's like, oh, God, I'm going to speak to you now. No. Because she comes in, like today, she comes in and I go, yeah, I did mention I've got a podcast, haven't I? Bye, close the door.
Marriage.
But anyway, today we're just rambling and I'm in my Black Sheep Ale and Lemsip Haze. I probably won't remember his names.
Oh,
You
superb.
could say
That
anything,
sounds
you
like,
have no memory of it.
sounds like it will help. So, yeah, it's been a couple of weeks since we've rambled at each other as well. How's life been?
All right. Have I done anything? No. But my husband did things. He was on Blue Peter
Wow.
Friday, just gone, the one before. So if you want,
Does he have a badge?
he does have a fucking badge. Yes. And now I cannot stress enough how much, as a kid, I thought Blue Peter was awful. And when I had to watch it because he was on it, it's changed a lot since we were kids. It used to be very sedate, didn't it? And now it's like, it's like the Big Breakfast, kind of shouty, shaky camera, zooming around. But it was the, what's it called? The Comic Relief special. So he had to teach the Blue Peter presenters how to do circus skills via Zoom, which is a task in himself. And then himself and two other members of the circus house were on the live show. So if you want to have a laugh at Owen in his work persona and not his grumpy man persona, then you can watch it on the iPlayer, and it's from the Comic Relief special from not the Friday just gone, but the one before. It's hilarious.
That's cool.
Oh, great. Right. I shall put that link in there. I'm going to go find that.
Well, I watched it. I sort of group watched it with some friends, and because none of us had watched Blue Peter for 30 years, and we were all just like, "What is going on? why is everyone shouting?
Where's Simon Groom?"
But yeah, that's been the biggest thing that's happened to us in the last few years.
Wow. The BBC statistics people will be going, there's a weird spike amongst this demographic that's never been attracted to. I think maybe we need to call the police. weird horror.
We had to. some of the skills he was teaching over Zoom was possible to teach over Zoom, like juggling, I guess, and stuff. But he had to teach one of them how to unicycle over Zoom, and it was like, is that going to work? And no, didn't work. But kind of
just hold you steady with my mind.
Yeah, just do that. No, don't do that. No, do that. Oh, never mind.
I can't imagine doing anything remotely like unicycle.
When this pandemic's over, Ian, I'm sure he'll teach you.
I failed my cycling proficiency as a child, and I've never really recovered from the trauma. I was slippered by my teacher for failing it. No one had ever failed it before.
Wow.
He was a bitch.
Wow.
I'm glad she's dead. But
anyways, and welcome to the horror podcast.
To connect to Stella's anecdote, I and it's Zoom related and also horror related. I went for a friend. I went for a walk the other day. This is how my brain is at the moment, completely fried. Went for a walk the other day with a friend, and we were talking about lots of different things. And turns out she's got some medium friends, and sometimes they, kind of do medium stuff together. And I asked, they do it on Zoom.
Right. Oh wow.
I think we should do that.
Seances on Zoom.
We get Christopher Rose on Zoom.
Yeah. But no, I was kind of joking with her. I was like, well, kind of, does that work? She's like, yeah, kind of. I was like, well, not seeing host.
Are you all up for that? Let's do that.
Yes.
No.
Oh.
Ian, it'll probably be the most boring episode of the podcast ever.
I don't think it will be.
Yeah, wait until the autumn.
The last podcast we ever do, it'll be really interesting.
Always leave them wanting more.
Yes.
Yeah. How did his neck break?
Wow. In April 2020, 4 podcasters made the mistake of doing a seance on Zoom. A year later, their recordings were discovered.
Nobody wanted to watch it because host had already been made.
Yeah, they just thought they're just ripping it off.
What's the point?
It's not a rip-off if it's real, though, Stella.
Well, no.
Yeah.
It's like host
Well,
real.
And I love a remake, so I'm all in.
Yeah. We'll all put American accents on.
Yeah.
Really American remake.
Oh dear. Speaking of which, right, although not really, but just an hour ago, I got an email from my my agent. I have an agent as an actor. I sometimes say that to sound grand. She's lovely, doesn't mean too much, and I haven't heard from her since last March, which was obviously the start of the pandemic, and I think probably the last time I got on a bus or any form of public transport was to go to that audition. And she just emailed me to offer me another audition, and I had to say no, I can't go because it's shooting down in London, and you've never got the part. There'd be no way I could get on a train until I have my second vaccination. So, but you know, it's been a bitch of a week at work as well, and it's like that. Just work of different kinds has just piled up, and I've had no free hours at all. And like as soon as that was finished, I got the message from my agent. I was like, I forgot I had another job.
Another life you did before. Yeah.
But that's a good sign, though, right? Is kind of opportunities are opening up because things are relaxing a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a lovely time. I took my kids are up from their mum, and my kid who lives with me and my wife. We all went to see my parents for the first time in August in the garden and in the Yorkshire Dales. And
nice.
It was the most gorgeous, perfect day. It was pretty amazing. And we all splashed around. We all went wading in a brook in the sun, and it was pretty damn amazing. So yeah, we did that, and then I've come home feeling absolutely like crap. But rough with the smooth.
But
It's been a bloody weird year or so, hasn't it?
Yes. I think is the simple answer.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, Ian, I started watching The Mad to Death last night, which is one of your favourites.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Got it on DVD. I've only seen the first episode.
Did I tell you at the time? Well, I haven't told our podcast readers, but one of the best reaction, because it's just about the right level for Kelly to be able to watch it with me, because she's such a wimp. That she can watch a 12 certificate 1970s BBC about rabies, and she jumped so much. The bit in the car park where the dog suddenly comes and is about to get the little boy.
I've only watched the first episode here.
Oh, well, it's a minor part of it. But she jumped so much, and her reaction was to dump an entire glass of wine in her eye. She almost smashed the glass in her eye. She hurt herself, and her eyes were stinging with wine. And she watched The Exorcist and only had 5 panic attacks. But watching The Mad Death, she dumped wine in her eye.
That's a reaction.
Which is amazing. Like a jump scare from the BBC in the 1979 or 1980 something?
That is cool.
83.
83.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned it though was that I was watching it with my mum last night, and when the outbreak begins and all the doctors turn up all masked up, my mum went, "Oh look, they've all got COVID."
Yeah. It is weird. It's a good one. Mad Death. It's and the parallels are really good. They're really, unlike Contagion that we were talking about the other day, they really get the denial and the fact that people don't cooperate and everyone else thinks they're above it, especially when it comes to like everyone's pets. But there's an old lady in it, which I remember from being a kid, and she's such an idiot in it.
Right.
It's yeah. But we should discuss it further because
the
ending of it is it's a very left wing piece. But the ending of it is so left wing,
right?
That it's quite it's I don't know if you'd have that ending now. I think the committee of people in suits would go, no, I don't think we need that ending, because it is a very it's a very rich people are evil kind of ending.
Well, now I'm looking forward to it, and that's why I'm watching it, so we can have that longer conversation.
Yeah.
I'd heard you extol its virtues often enough that I thought, right, I shall do this. And,
well, I just in a similar vein, my 5-year-old, I was telling him what triffids were, And I said, he's just been getting into classic Doctor Who and actually liking it. And I said, well, I've got the DVD of Day of the Triffids. And he watched it and was kind of scared, but also absolutely loves Triffids now.
Wow.
So he runs around in the garden, pulling up plants and with them, going, I'm a Triffid sting, I'm a Triffid sting. So, which is brilliant because Triffids are just part of my DNA. Absolutely love them. Just love Triffids. I always have them.
Can you isolate that sentence?
Triffids, yeah. I've got a sting coming out of my mouth. But,
There's a story in our family. Apparently, when the Day of the Triffids TV version was on in 1981, so I would have been 0. But apparently, my older brother used to frighten my sisters by coming into a room holding a shower head above his head and saying he was a Triffid.
yeah, I used to scare my brother by going, oh, like that. Because, the people at home aren't lucky enough to be able to see it, but just from the titles.
Yeah.
Waving my hand at him and going, ooh. And he used to burst into tears.
See, I don't have any recollection of the Triffids at all.
It was 81, so you weren't born.
Yeah,
I was born. I just wasn't. Yeah, but do you remember the tripods?
Oh yeah, the tripods is a little bit after that. That was my favourite show when I was 5.
That scared the shit out of me.
Oh, no, it's brilliant. I was
old enough. The tripods is a wasted opportunity because I love the books. I grew up with the books, and then I'm older than you, so when the show came on, talking to Simon Groom, I remember it all comes back. I remember Blue Peter doing a massive. Here's the City of Gold and Lead with Simon Groom doing the piece to camera and all the special effects and that great big dome that the tripod aliens live in. Big eye. But no, but I in general I think the tripod, they should do it again and do it well, because it really fell apart. It started off well.
Well, the reason it fell apart, Ian, and I don't want to turn this into a tripods podcast. I do recommend it, and I think it stands up really well. But I was aware of it at the age of 5. It was the first series that I was annoyed about getting cancelled, because there's 3 books and they filmed the first 2 books and then cancelled it.
Yeah.
So even now, there's just no ending, and that's the tragedy of it. It is quite good.
I remember thinking, I'm not surprised. I was annoyed, but then it was they made the second. I'd love to go. Maybe we should do a podcast on it, because I remember. I'm only getting from whatever age I was when it was on, 10 or whatever. I remember thinking, this is really good, and then the second season was just, they've somehow made it all some weird middle where you never see the tripods, and being a bit bored, and then not being that surprised that season 3 didn't appear.
I don't know if I'd like you to watch it again, because I don't know if you'd feel like that. Now, I've heard to me, the second series was much better, and I've heard that it's like an example of the slowness of TV administration, is that the first series of the tripods is quite boring and didn't get high ratings, so they cancelled it but made the second series. The second series was much better and much more popular, but they'd already cancelled it by then. I think the people making the second series knew that it had been cancelled.
That's awful, isn't it? But nowadays it's literally, you've been cancelled, and you hear about Netflix or someone cancel a show, and literally the lawyers come in with clipboards and start literally, we've been cancelled. What? And then it's like they come in and start assessing how much everything's worth when they sell it off, put it into storage and stuff. But it's weird, because today we are literally just rambling about the past year and what we've seen. But one of the best things about this, being involved in this podcast, is rewatching things and reappraising things. Because the thing that sticks out to me most is I would never have watched Bram Stoker's Dracula again if it hadn't been for this podcast. And now I'm tantamount to almost buying a copy of it because I like it so much. So it's but I dismissed it as a louche, as a louche 19-year-old. I think especially as a man, things when you're younger, you maybe don't get the more sensitive side of stuff, so you're not that bothered. And when you get older, you realise there's quite a lot going on in this, isn't there?
Oh, I'm glad that that's
Yeah,
how
you
feel
obsessed
about
over
it.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I'll never watch again. Whereas, because it's cool and everyone's getting cut to pieces, but actually, and something that's a bit wet and girly, like Bram Stoker's Dracula. Actually, you realise you're an absolute dick as a young man for not liking it. Is how I see it. But yeah, it's just great rewatching things, and yeah, so maybe I will. Is Tripods on BritBox yet?
No, not yet.
No.
I watched it a few years ago it was on YouTube for a bit, but they've got rid of it now.
I was going to say, because
I think it's on DVD.
Do such a thing. Yeah, I don't know if I'm that keen to buy a DVD of the Tripods, seeing as I remember it being a bit shonky. I've got enough to watch, but maybe. I just remember. I just love the books are brilliant. You should read the books. Like,
I recently
the ending of the books really affected me as a child because they're so pessimistic.
I've not read the third one. I recently reread the first one with my English student who I teach. So reading that together with him was really good, and also
Did you suggest it, Dan? Was that your choice of reading?
Or was it just a massive coincidence?
Well, could it have been a coincidence? Yeah, I certainly suggested it. Absolutely. Look, listen, right? We just read. We read the second book of The Chaos Walking. We've read some books by. That's really good. We've read some David Walliams. I thought I'm going to introduce this guy to the kind of thing I was reading when I was little. So,
I find David Walliams so boring. It's like you can hear him typing, like typing with one hand, and he's on a calculator working out how much money he's made with the other.
He's eminently slappable, isn't he?
Yeah, well, it's weird you should say that. Here's a clang. When I was at a screening, and I can't remember what, but I went into the toilet and opened the door, and David Walliams was pissed out of his mind. It's when he was appearing in tabloids, and he was pissed out of his mind, and he burst into me and then fell flat on his ass and was just laughing in the piss and on the floor by the urinals, laughing his shiny face off.
Okay.
And I just went, "You're David Walliams." He went, "Yes, I am." And and then we went back to our seat.
You live such a glamorous life.
I know.
Ian.
Yeah, toilets and cinemas. That's basically. Because I did the same thing with Alan Moore years before. I knocked Alan Moore before I knew him.
Bang.
There we go. Someone else do it.
I'm the sort of person that opens the doors into toilets way too harsh. Way too.
Well, that's a warning to take heed of.
Yes.
Look out, celebrities.
That sounds like that's a concept for a program.
My next victim. I'll hang out in Soho and smack you in the face with the door.
I'd watch that.
Yeah.
So, Ian, you identified Bram Stoker's Dracula as one of the things you were pleased that this podcast got you rewatching. Would you like to mention something else that you enjoyed, or shall we all bang on about Bram Stoker's Dracula for a bit?
Well, I was also thinking. I mean, the thing that got me thinking, I'll join in with your podcast, was Grimfest, and obviously we got to do lots and lots of cool Zooms. And it's so weird. I'd never heard the word Zoom just over a year ago. I'd never heard the word Zoom. And
I think you had heard the word Zoom, Ian. It did exist.
Yes. It was a lollipop in the 70s. But yeah, I didn't know what the software was, and it was But yeah, I think Lance Henriksen was a bit of a highlight because it was quite surreal, that one as well, because he was on for so long. And we ended up chatting about stuff. With most of the people you interview, you talk about the film. But in the case of Lance Henriksen, he was starting to ask about the background in my house and what's that skeleton and what are those blocks?
That was quite random. The random moment for me was when I logged onto the Zoom 5 minutes early to try and psych myself up and catch up in before everyone, and I just suddenly had Lance Henriksen looking at me. He was already there.
He was doing exactly the same thing as you.
Yes.
Oh
bless him.
man, I was hoping this would be empty. I'm so nervous.
No.
But yeah. No. So yeah, a lot of the things we did for Grimfest were really good fun.
Yeah, we got to see some cool films and interview a lot of cool people, and that was great.
And I'm still in touch with Bry Troyer as a result. Like,
Yeah.
on Twitter and things. He's one of those people that tweets. Not so much now that Trump's no longer president, but
All right.
he was very much a Trump hater.
Right. Okay.
Being a decent human being.
I was going to say, there are good people in the world.
Yeah, so no, we've made lots of good friends. Lots of them. Lots of people.
And also, Fried Barry as a movie. I don't think I would have ever. I don't know if I would have watched it in the normal world. Maybe I would have done if I'd have gone. But yeah. But did you see the April Fool today on Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many that I fell for today. That was one of them.
Oh God, I fell for the hitchhikers.
I know.
So badly.
Why? What was it? What was it?
It's perfect. It was basically Arthur Dent was Robert Mitchell, David Mitchell, sorry.
Yeah.
And then I'm awful, but I don't know who the woman was. But then it was
Richard Iowadi.
What's his name?
Richard Iowadi.
Yeah, I was about to say Lawrence Fox's brother-in-law. Lawrence Fox's brother-in-law. But yeah, Richard. Well, because he is Richard Ayoade as Ford Prefect, and it would just be absolutely perfect. Like that would be perfect. And I shared it, and then went, "Oh, it's making sense, isn't
it?" So what was the April Fool? Did they make a trailer for it, or was it just like a news?
It just showed it was a really well done, like
Netflix
presents.
Right.
For the second, check your
diary.
One
I saw this morning was the Big Lebowski 2.
Right.
And I looked at other comments. Other comments were like, "No, don't do it." And like every 3 or 4 comments, it was like, "Come on, look at the date." But so many people were like, "No." But yeah.
I can't. Like I said before, I cannot remember how. It's one of those films that just goes on and on. Good as it is to start with, I can never remember if I've finished watching it or not.
Big Lebowski.
Yeah, I think it's a bit overrated. So.
Oh, okay.
I watched it for the first time this year and enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, well, again, maybe
I like to watch it on Christmas Eve and drink White Russians. That's what I do on Christmas Eve.
Maybe I should watch it again
with the White Russians.
The fact
that probably helps. The fact when the nihilists turn up and it's like, what is this film doing now? That's
the point. It's nothing happens. No, she's not been kidnapped.
Yeah.
There is no ransom.
Maybe I just wasn't clever enough when I watched it before.
The whole point is that nothing has happened.
Yeah.
I do love,
like, it's a film that I don't love, and yet I do really like so much about it. Like, nice mama is a great line.
There's many good lines.
Talking of ransom as an oblique segue, did you see the Rian Johnson Knives Out news?
Oh yeah.
I'm assuming that's real. That feels real. It feels like it's been brewing for a while.
I think that was yesterday as well.
Are they doing a sequel?
They're doing two and 3.
I still haven't seen the first one.
Oh, it's great.
It's great.
Is it good?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Only Dan is going to get the fact that the word ransom is a segue into Knives Out.
Oh yeah, of course.
But yeah. So what about you guys? What have you liked from the podcast?
Stella, how about you? What sticks with you after a year of doing this?
Oh, sorry, I meant to say the reason I mentioned Fried Barry is because our Ryan Kruger, our person we interviewed who directed Fried Barry, he put up a really convincing one saying that he's delighted to announce his next project is Nick Cage and Barry. And loads of people believed him. And I just sent a message to him saying, well, underneath, just saying Nick Cage should be so lucky. It's with Barry.
Nice.
So
what?
Yeah. The thing I was flicking through my book of notes, and I've filled a full notebook of notes over the last year, and The one, because there's a few things that I'd never seen before, like The Exorcist 3. But the one that really stands out as being the thing that I was surprised, and I guess how good it was, how frightening it was, how much it bothered me. And it was during Barty's party. It's really sort of stuck and been like, that's still really, really weird, and it's just sort of stuck in my head and it got under my skin. Again, even we don't see anything; it's just noises, just the scratching, and just the short, contained, almost like watching a play. It was, I think that's the one that stands out as being the thing that I would never have watched otherwise. I would never have come across that at all. I wouldn't have sought it out, seeked it out. I wouldn't have put it on a watch list or anything. I'd never heard of it. So yeah, that's the one that stands out as I will. So in that, I've recommended it to people afterwards. I think that's a key.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm still going to go and buy the rest of Beasts because I want to see I want to see the Ghost Dolphin episode. Which sounds mental.
Yeah.
But Neil's one of those people I've always been aware of, and through my friendship with you, Dan, like putting on the Sex Olympics, stage play and things like that years ago, I've kind of come to actually watch Nigel Neal stuff rather than just read about them in essays and things. So yeah, Barty's party was long overdue. Thank the podcast for.
Yeah, I'm really glad about that you guys liked it.
It's a masterpiece. I think Bafflegab should do it as an audio. I could properly see an audio version of it.
Oh yeah, it totally work. Yeah.
Scraping and scrabbling and gnawing at wood. Brilliant sounds.
Yeah, I think you could do so much with it, but I think it's perfect as it is. But I also think you could translate it to any medium. You could do it again. And I'm just really chuffed to have got people talking about it because it's kind of a little bit unknown.
Yeah. Could you do a Zoom version? Could you have people speaking on Zoom, and some people are like, "What's going on in your house?"
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. No, I have to say, for me, I'm not in the habit of listening back to episodes, but I will I'm more inclined to listen, only because of me. I don't want to hear me, but I am more inclined to listen to episodes, that don't include me. So I listened to the kind of Barty's party one after having watched it, and I think it's a fantastic episode and a great discussion by some interesting people. But the episode itself was just so unexpected. So I'm very grateful that that's a thing that I now am aware of.
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, my rat story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that was a thing in itself. It was worth the price of the podcast, which is free. So
Yeah, I would potentially recommend people just listen to it for your rat story.
Yeah,
I think it's rather good on its own. I still think about things in that story. It has haunted me. Absolutely.
Yeah, rats are. They are grim. They're
all right.
They are just waiting to take over.
Dan, what about you?
Well, I mean, it's hard to pick one thing, and I haven't, glanced back over my notes because I did intend to do that, but because of work and things, I've just had no time to devote any thoughts whatsoever to this. Hopefully, I will go back and look before next week. So the first thing on my mind is mainly when the last episode we did was the one about Contagion and survivors, and I listened back to it, and I thought, wow, was I not even really awake? Because I just didn't seem to say much that I thought I was going to say. I didn't even tell you guys my Survivors story of how I watched Survivors for the first time, which seems to have been slightly relevant. Well, it's just the fact that back in 2004, I was working for the police, and I went in on the weekend to do like 3 hours of overtime for a bit of extra cash. But in that 3 hours, I got really, really ill. Just like flu struck me. And I just went to my supervisor, look, I've got to leave. Do you mind? And she went, no, don't. Well, I think it was like only half an hour before the end of the shift anyway. But she said, no, go. And I went up the hill, and there was a wonderful second-hand DVD and music store there, which I hope will have survived the pandemic, because it was still, even though this story is 15 years ago, the shop was still going very recently. I think I bought my DVD of ghost stories from there. Anyway, I saw that this shop had the complete first series of Survivors on VHS on separate videotapes for £1 each, with like 2 episodes per tape. And I just bought them all. And then, despite that, I was feeling like death. And then I just went home. And I went straight to bed and lay in bed watching the first episode of Survivors.
With a fever.
I think I survived maybe halfway into episode 2. But possibly one of the reasons why I find the first episode so powerful is that I felt like I was dying while I watched it. And every time I watch it again, that comes back. It was, and also I think it's kind of led me to this place where I always associate Survivors with kind of multimedia viewing. It's like smell-o-vision, it's not just enough just to watch it. You have to be doing something else immersive. So like when they started to bring out the audio series, I download it onto my phone and walk around kind of post-apocalyptic wastelands listening to it and feeling like I was there. Although funnily enough, when the pandemic happened, I didn't watch it because I thought I wouldn't enjoy it anymore. But having to rewatch it for our podcast, I realized that no, it's great. And in fact, this is why didn't I realize this is the perfect moment? This is the perfect kind of multimedia sort of immersive experience. I'll sit in an actual pandemic and watch Survivors. In fact, I heard the actress Carolyn Seymour has just released an interview CD. And I heard an advert for her last week, and she's interviewed by the comedian Toby Haydock, and he says, I'm not unaware of the irony of the fact that I'm interviewing the star of Survivors over Zoom because we're in the middle of a global pandemic at the moment. And yeah, I think I might.
Where was that interview done?
That was on the Big Finish website. I'll put a link in the show notes. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just rewatching it. Honestly, I almost cried, and I think I realized something about stuff I love that I hadn't quite grasped before. By the way, I never mentioned either, I should have said this, Carolyn Seymour, the actress, was married to Peter Medak, which says 2 things. 1, we should have mentioned it on the Changeling podcast, and 2, it just goes to prove that everything in this podcast somehow leads back to Hannibal, because of course Peter Medak directed 2 episodes of Hannibal.
All roads lead to Hannibal.
Indeed.
Absolutely. But the thing that I realized was that, Kirsty, do you remember when we did very early in the podcast, when we did the episode where I kind of introduced Hammer films and I introduced what me and Howard will be talking about?
Yeah.
And you and I did the preview episode where we discussed 2 of them, and you kind of said, so what is it that stands out to you about these movies? Is it just those actors? And I sort of said, well, yes, really. It's the fact that kind of Hammer movies have a certain type of actor, and we exemplify them by talking about Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. But I didn't click until I watched Survivors, in which it's Carolyn Seymour and Lucy Fleming who are doing it. And I realized it's not just any particular actors, it's actors who can do this particular thing, which is be incredibly well spoken while expressing extreme emotions. So Carolyn Seymour is like so posh, but and so clipped, and but I completely believe her in that show. The kind of desolation of the moment when she looks up to the sky and says, oh God, don't let me be the only one. which I think is a wonderful line. But also, like Lucy Fleming, who's wasn't the greatest actress at the start of that series. Even some of her bits almost brought me to tears. It wasn't so much when I was watching it, but when I was editing the episode of the podcast afterwards, and I had to edit clips of the show to go in there, I found myself watching the bit where Lucy Fleming's character has it explained to her by the doctor about what's happening with the pandemic, and she just says in this very prim but totally sincere way, she goes, "But they'll find something, won't they? They'll find a cure. They're not going to let millions of people die." And I just kind of thought, you sweet summer child. It's so naive. It's brilliant. It's like, and the message of that kind of moment is, no, they're not going to. It's too late. It's far too late. It's not a case of the series is saying the government's evil or there's a conspiracy going on. It's just sometimes things are crap, and there's nothing we can do. And also, Stella, I suddenly realised that the first episode of Survivors is a bit like the first episode of Red Dwarf. You know, by 30 minutes in, everybody's dead.
Everyone's dead, Dave.
You know,
Dave,
it's like they're all dead, Dave.
Everybody's dead, Dave. Dave.
You know,
everybody's dead.
You know, you can't. I mean, you see a few people die, but it's like if you stop and think, after 30 minutes, everybody you've seen in the previous half an hour is now dead, even if the show doesn't tell you they're dead. Like the nice station master who says everything's all gone to pot. You know, he's dead. He's all dead. I think it's so stark and brilliant, and I could go on more about it. I'm not going to, but there's just so many things. I just was reminded that I love the fact, and this is the last thing I want to say about Survivors. I love the fact that, like we mentioned in the episode, they never find out what the virus was. So afterwards, the survivors just refer to it as the death. That's all they ever call it. And
the death.
The stark savagery of that, I think it stands up incredibly.
Yeah. No, it's funny because watching Day of the Triffids the other day, and that posh woman who's kind of with the help of a tough gentleman is able to survive is very much an
Thank God he was there.
of these apocalypses that are written by middle class British writers of that period. So it's like, you know, what makes Survivors interesting is he at least puts her center stage. And then there's you know, so there's sort of the usual hero guy is someone they meet. You know, it's almost like third billing, isn't he?
Yeah.
Day of the Triffids is much more traditional. Here is a man with a beard who knows how to survive.
And well, you often get that thing. There's a triumvirate with two men and one woman. You know, the Star Wars thing. At least in Survivors, it's two women and one man.
Yeah. No. It's an interesting. He was weirdly for the time he was writing. Intoe Nation had his he was fairly right on, wasn't he?
Well, apparently he even lived self-sufficiently while writing it. Maybe he'd seen The Good Life and was inspired.
Yeah.
Or he tried to, Kirsty. I don't know how successful he was.
With his darling. Was he a millionaire by then?
He probably was.
From writing because he'd had over 10 years of merchandise money from Daleks.
Yeah.
So So it's no. Survivors was a good one to rewatch, but I did rewatch that anyway. So I can't put that on the podcast because it's one of those ones that lots of people like you had talked about and I'd never quite watched. I'd heard people always talk about the speech about the table, can you? And then people started talking about it as COVID-19 happened. The whole speech about the table with the.
And can you make a
you
candle?
might be able to make a table, but could you make a hammer?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it is very much end of days. Like, where would we go to start making metal? Like, how would we go and do it?
Yeah. So, no, that was the thing. Basically, when I knew we were going to talk about things from the past year, and I've not had time to properly review my thoughts, it comes down to two things. It comes down to saying that, which I've said, and also going on about Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I'm sure we'd all like to do more of. I think maybe we should leave that till next week, because I think I'm probably going to go on for ages. We did the first time.
I mean, they're more recent, so maybe we've just missed them. But Danny Robbins and Stephen Volk, and getting to meet Stephen Volk was pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, they were both wonderful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
I'm just slightly giggling because meet, but in 2020
means
on Zoom
means this.
Well, I've never met you guys.
Exactly.
Not seen you in 3 dimensions yet.
Just you wait.
No, it's been pretty. It's almost
on the toilet.
It's almost the only good thing about 2020 is that people are happy to meet you in this way. Whereas before it was like, can you find them? Do you have a connection? Do you know their agent or whatever? Whereas now it's like, do you do Zoom? Of course you do. Everybody does, because we have to. So we just do it.
I've got a couple of mates who have managed to be like, nope, hate Zoom, not doing it, absolutely not, nope, and then just still won't. I've got 2 friends who just won't do Zoom.
I've got a friend who won't
or WhatsApp video.
Cell phones, and it's just like they're slipping out of life. They could do what everyone can live on their own level, but we're all so connected, old friends, and some of them are slipping away because they don't do social media or even phones. And it's like, well, I think you'll find where we don't know who we none of us speak to you because it's just not part of our everyday thing. It's I don't know, maybe that's awful on us, but we should pick up a phone and ring their landline every so often.
I haven't got a landline.
No, me
I
either.
don't have it. Also, the person who rang it was a mother-in-law, and
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not my mother.
If my phone goes, it's my mum.
Yeah.
Or it's a cold caller.
Sales,
I mean, I found that 2021 has really helped me embrace my introverted nature.
Yeah.
So I don't, I hate phone calls. Really, it's like, don't phone me.
I don't like it.
Don't phone me.
Just send me a text.
Yeah, I'll text me. Yeah, or just if it's official, email me. Here's my email address. That's fine.
Yeah. No, it's weird because for ages it was creeping in with Skype and things. Remember Skype?
Yeah.
And like every so often people go, no, we'll just do it. We'll meet you via Skype. And in my head I was going, well, at least I don't have to go to London. But in my head I was going, I like going to London.
Yeah.
Going to London for an hour meeting is really good because I get to be in London where I used to live and meet up with people. But yeah, and they'd go, oh, we'll meet by Skype, and I used to absolutely hate it. And now it's just, if somebody says, do you want to come to London? You'd be like, okay, so why do you need me in London?
Oh no, don't say that. I'm hearing across various sectors that people are going, oh no, this sort of working from home blended approach is going to stay, and I'm like, no.
Well, no, but I think I think it is, and I think it's generally good. I mean, as a writer, one of the things everyone used to moan about was, here I am again on the train going to London for an hour to meet someone.
Yeah, there's going to be
probably
some
hasn't read my script in a coffee shop.
But so for instance, remember last summer, some friends bought me tickets to Fright Fest. Normally I wouldn't go because it's in London and it's expensive, and because it was online, I could watch it. So I think hopefully stuff like that will stay, where film festivals, conferences, things like that will have a live stream at the same time. So maybe people can give papers at conferences and they don't have to come all the way from Australia to give a 20-minute paper. Like hopefully that will stay, and that'll be nice. But in terms of work, and any rumblings that I'm hearing, and I am hearing it across the education sector, that some stuff, well, that can just stay online, can't it? And I'm like, fucking can't. I need to go to work. I need to get out. But yeah, there's whispers of it because it'll be cheaper. So yeah, they can.
I mean,
frankly,
people are mixed. I've got a friend who's like, he's not just in IT. He's one of those people that he's one of, you know, when he's on if people who know IT, he's like one of 20 people on planet Earth who know certain financial programs. When, you know, he works for the big banks and stuff, and he usually has in the before times he spent half his life on planes and stuff, and now he's spent his entire life doing his job, and everyone's gone, oh yeah, we are in IT, aren't we? And actually we don't need to get on aeroplanes, do we? And actually the people in IT should maybe have realized a bit earlier, and apparently the consensus is everyone's just going to carry on working from home because it's fine. They all live in cyberspace. They can Zoom if they need to meet, and that's got to be good for
the planet.
Yeah. Well, I walk to work, so can I go to work?
Oh no, I know. There's sort of, we're sort of winning and losing on different areas, aren't we?
Yeah.
But
I think when it comes to education, there's an argument to be made that actually interacting with your students in physical reality is pretty important, at least some of the time. So.
Oh, totally. Especially when they're adults and they're allowed. You can't really tell them off for like not paying attention or just turning their cameras off.
I can, and I do.
Yeah.
Oh, you can, but it's not the same as with school pupils where they can actually get in trouble. Or maybe it is.
Hopefully, I'll be back in campus in September. Hopefully.
Yeah. But for me, it's COVID-19. The first thing it did was stop me being a lecturer because I was a visiting lecturer, and after that, the end of the academic year, I finished off on Teams, and then they basically. I mean, they've just killed so many people across the sector have lost their jobs. Like my wife's an archaeologist, and she's just hearing about people that at the uni with all the archaeologist lecturers, like they've just decimated them.
Yep.
They've just before Easter they've let people go. And so it's
my job is as rickety as ever.
Yeah.
Oh no, it sounded like there was more stability for you, Stella, last time we spoke.
It's kind of, there's some stuff that is stable in that teaching my new module, so there's that, but I don't know how much other work there'll be, and they don't know yet either. It's not like they're holding out on me, they're not hiding information from me, it's just they don't know either. But I'm gonna start agitating for a permanent contract, because I can't continue with this anxiety of, do I still have a job? Because I'm going to be 40 this year. I'd quite like a permanent job, please. That would be nice. But we'll see. We'll see. There's other things that are nicer that are going on. Book things, writing's all going well, but yeah. I've been marking today, so that's why I'm grumpy with work. Can you tell?
Yeah. Just
it was all right though, the marking.
Isn't it?
Wasn't too bad. I didn't want to cry.
I had an interesting experience the other week where I found myself looking back through the papers that I did as a student at uni, and I compared the papers where, I spent a lot of time on them. I'd really put a lot of research effort in, but maybe because of that, they weren't finished quite in time, and I didn't have the time to do a proper proofread, and they were full of errors. And then I looked at the ones that I'd written on the morning of the submission date, and I
didn't do that.
About films that I had not even watched, and they had no content, but they were perfectly spelled and perfectly laid out, and both types of essay got roughly the same mark, like 60%. And it
For
just
any
made me think,
students listening, that's not the way to do it.
No. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
casting any aspersions, but I do wonder about the quality of the marking that's going on there.
Yeah.
yeah,
Were they
I think-
moderated?
Or that went on, rather.
yes,
Were they
exactly. It's a
moderated?
while ago.
Yes.
Ugh.
At my university, one of the weirdest things with me is I always said it to my students is don't be like me. Don't read all your reading list while you're unemployed after graduating. Because that's what so many of students do. It's like, oh, I'm having fun being a student, and then you're unemployed after graduating, and you're like, well, there's all these books I bought. Oh,
Oh, they're actually quite interesting, aren't
I might
they?
have got quite a lot out of university if I'd read these while I was learning. But yes, but we're massively off topic.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah.
we're just chatting and reflecting.
What else do we talk about?
I can talk about how there's a book that I've got a chapter in that is now available to purchase in the shops by real people.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
We
Go on.
ordered one.
You've ordered one?
Yes.
Yay!
So tell
So
us
it's-
more, Stella.
It's an edited collection by Stacey Abbott and Lorna Jowett, and both of them are like really, really good at what they do. Big names in the field, in the horror academia world. So they wrote a book called TV Horror in 2011, 2012, and it was very much a historical book, sort of making the argument that horror has always been on television. It's just been sort of in various different guises and in various different forms, different shapes. And the book did very, very well. And then since writing that and this edited collection, obviously there's been a boom in TV horror and it's become a global product. So they did a call for papers, I answered it, and my chapter is about the global spread of The Walking Dead as an industrial strategy rather than, I'm not necessarily talking about the show itself, I'm talking about Fox international channels and the deal that went on with AMC. But it looks like a really, really good book. It is called Global TV Horror, so it looks at TV horror serializations from around the globe, as the title suggests. And the fact that it's edited by Stacey Abbott and Lorna Jowett. I've been reading Stacey Abbott's work in particular since, I don't know, for a good 15 years. So she always seemed a bit just really far away from me. Like I never thought I'd be anywhere near her. She just felt like, oh, she's amazing. And then I met her a few times, and then she examined my PhD, and then I wrote this chapter and she's edited my work, and now we're friends, and it's like, oh,
Awesome.
this
Didn't
is
she,
nice.
didn't she do a book on cult TV as well?
Yes, the cult
Yeah,
TV book.
Yeah, I got that one.
Around here somewhere.
Good type.
Yeah.
And then her other book, Undead Apocalypse, where it's all about where vampires and zombies are kind of intersected, and that's a really, really good book. It's got a fabulous front cover. So I was really familiar with her work and Lorna's work. So to work with them and have them edit my work was a privilege and a joy. And they're really, really good editors, and I learned a lot with the process. Anyway, the book is out. It's in paperback, which is nice for an academic book. So yeah, anybody get it in your libraries. It's 40 quid, which is a lot for a book, but for an academic book, that's not actually that bad.
No,
So
that's
it's University
fine.
of Wales Press, so they're quite good at not charging £100 plus.
If I get back
Well,
into a university, I shall. I used to love ordering books,
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
adding
Oh,
reading
yeah.
lists.
That's a nice thing that's happened this week. I'm still waiting for my copy though.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my copy for
Are you?
dinner. Yeah.
Yeah,
I want it, but yeah.
Hannibal was one of the. We could probably talk about that next time we meet, but because Hannibal is a huge subject. But yeah, Hannibal is something I probably wouldn't have sat watching.
That's a good point,
Yeah,
actually.
maybe
Where's
this podcast.
everybody up to with Hannibal? Because I'm still
I got to the end
rewatching
of
the
season
second
2 and thought, I'm going. You know, when you really like something, you don't want to binge it and ruin it. I
Yeah.
got to the end of season 2 and stopped, and I haven't gone back. But not
I'm
because
just
I
at the
didn't
end of
like it,
season
but
1
because
because it's in the next chapter that I'm going to do on my book, so I need to leave it till then because I'm thinking about other things at the moment.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Stella, you will like season 2. I think that might be your season.
You're probably wise to do that though, because I think in the podcast I started doing that because so many interesting things happen in season 2 that you end up just wanting to talk about that.
Yeah.
Season 1 is good, but is very much here's the show, and season 2 is when they start messing around with your expectations as a viewer and a reader, and it works for everybody, which I think is really interesting. Because
we should bring it back when we come back in our next series properly. Then
because I haven't watched season 3 yet.
Done all my research on it and whatnot, and I'll have more to say.
I did it. I also submitted a proposal for an online conference about the Gothic.
All right.
It's just happening as a little series of live kind of panels across, I don't know, about 6 weeks, I think, and then that has been followed up with an invitation to kind of write it up as a proper thing, which is good. So
brilliant.
kind of looking at kind of animals and the use of animal symbolism in it, because it's massive
in the Gothic.
As part of what I've sort of cheekily framed it as the kind of use of zoomorphic practice in as part of the Gothic excess of Hannibal.
Ingenious.
You're not going to mention Nicolas Cage dressed up as a bear in The Wicker Man.
No, because just doing on Hannibal, but
she's dodging that bullet.
No, absolutely.
By the way, sorry, this is totally off the Hannibal topic, but it just reminded me, for listeners on Amazon Prime, you might sometimes see the Nicolas Cage version of The Wicker Man come up, and you might have a masochistic desire to watch it.
Don't.
However, do click on it, because if you do, they put the 1973 version of The Wicker Man on. It's really weird. It's like the people behind Amazon Prime are like know the truth of things, and they want to seduce people who will only consider watching modern films into going, no, this is the good one.
Oh my God, I'd love to hear somebody watching that by accident.
People must have done.
There must have been like, Nicolas Cage looks really different. He's a comedian of an actor. That Scottish accent's amazing.
Or they get an hour into it and go, this is good, but when's Nicolas Cage and Ellen Burstyn turning up?
Yeah. Wow, why is Sarah Man in it?
So again, that felt like a recommendation, Dan. So should we?
Easy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose it sort of was.
You're recommending the Nicolas Cage. You're recommending the Nicolas Cage.
I'd never thought I'd see the day.
Get away from it.
I'm recommending you click on it on Amazon Prime only in that circumstance. Is it?
Because you don't want to sort of screw their data, though, do you? Like sort of expressing a desire to watch that film.
But they must know what it really is. They put it there.
Well, yeah, but
I don't think they care though.
Yeah, Amazon. I don't think the dating people probably don't give a crap.
No.
Amazon's attention to detail with things is very.
They don't care what you watch, so long as you watch.
Whoever they get to write their copy is really, they don't have a really amazing department writing their copy. Like Netflix, you get a decent like copy.
Well, they often get the year wrong, I notice. On Amazon
but
Prime,
when it comes to Amazon, there's obviously some 17-year-old who's literally a bank of them, and English might not be their first language, just googling stuff and writing with a massive amount of stuff to write.
An infinite
I'll just write a quick appraisal of this movie I've never seen and get it completely wrong. But yeah,
anyway,
we're moving on to recommendations now.
Yes, I think
the
so.
clock is ticking.
Yep. So, who wants to go first? I've already got in the Wicker Man thing. So
apart from, again, Stella's waving a book up.
I'm excited to recommend it.
Go on
Yes.
then, Stella. You take
on
that.
then.
Get in there. What
Right,
would you like to
I'm going
recommend?
to recommend this incredible edited collection called Women Make Horror, Filmmaking, Feminism and Genre. And it's edited by the incredible Alison Pierce, who, again, an amazing horror scholar. She's been doing this for a very, 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 very long time. And it's got several scholars in it that I know. It's an amazing book that makes the argument, or just gently points out that women have always been working in and making and writing and enjoying and being involved with horror. And each essay that I've read in it is really insightful, really good. They're looking at older films as well as newer texts. And I got this, again, it's an academic book, but it wasn't too expensive. I think it was about 15, 18 quid. I got a second-hand one. But it's really, really, really good. It's got all these female names, writers, producers, directors, editors. So all, you know, all the above the line workers, women in horror for the past however many decades, going right back to the very, very start. So check it out. Women Make
Wow.
Horror, edited by Alison Pierce.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Stella's so excited about that. She's holding it up to the camera for us all to see clearly. Absolutely, that's indelible. Nice one, Stella. That's great. Ian, what were you going to say?
So I was going to say, apart from the fact that Battersea Poltergeist, or the Battersea Podcast, as Dan insisted, the Battersea Poltergeist.
But yes,
the Battersea Poltergeist is currently on actual BBC airwaves every night this week. Yeah, it's going out at 11:30 p.m.
Oh, cool.
Scaring the Jesus out of people.
At the witching
I
hour.
haven't heard it before. Yeah. And also they've announced when their 9th episode is.
All right. Which is?
And this is the sort of thing seamlessly I should know. But while
Is
I'm
it the
Googling that,
9th of April?
I was going to say
that would make sense.
It's Friday, isn't
I
it?
thought we might need to talk about
it is.
this.
It's 999, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
999?
It's 9 p.m. on the 9th of April. So that's
Okay.
not 999.
Where's the third line?
Yeah.
Certainly 9 and
You
9.
have to say it.
But the lovely Danny.
Yes.
But also, it's this isn't very horror, but it's sci-fi. I've finally the power of story to make you subscribe to channels. I've subscribed to Apple TV. Finally,
me too.
everyone kept saying that For All Mankind is really good, and fuck me, it's amazing.
What's
Okay.
it called? Say that
For
again.
All Mankind.
For
It's
All
a
Mankind.
counterfactual account of. I mean, this isn't a spoiler, but in a way, I'd quite like people to, because my wife watched it with me and didn't know what the premise was. So in a way,
Okay, don't.
So in a way, it's just really good. Just what I mean, it'd probably be impossible to even get to the page because it'll probably tell you what happens in the little bit of blurb next to it. But it's basically, what if the space race had never stopped?
Right.
So it starts in '69, and season 2 goes into the '80s, and it's basically moon bases and different people winning different elections because of the space race and the Cold War going slightly differently.
I'll tell Owen about it. Sounds right
It's
up his street.
absolutely, and it's first rate,
Yeah, same.
really high budget as well. It's absolutely brilliant. So you'll definitely love it, I think, Dan.
Well, I love the sound of it. Definitely.
Yeah, and I won't tell you. I won't, because I really would love, if it's possible, just watch the first episode, and just because there's surprises straight away.
Gonna do that.
Parallel universe, but it's not one of those ones that goes, we're living in a parallel universe.
Oh, okay.
It's not like the Man in the High Castle.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's basically just here's the world, and you know it's a bit different, but then it's got loads of cool little documentaries sort of attached to it, explaining why they think Reagan wins 4 years early and stuff like that, and there's all this sort of different things going on. Nixon loses before Watergate happened. And stuff like
Ian, Ian, stop telling us the plot.
No. In a way, that's like no, but also in a way, that's like that's the background.
Okay.
It doesn't focus on the.
Okay.
It doesn't. It also uses deep fake really well.
Okay.
There's loads of good reasons to watch it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would definitely check that
It's
out.
a big, high budget American space race. And I'll shut up now.
Well, I'll see if I can get a free trial without succumbing to the temptation to actually spend money.
Well, you see, I got it.
You
'cause
only get 7 days. You only get 7 days. And
See, I've got it for a year because I bought a new iPad, so that's the benefits of.
yeah,
I'll do
I'm
it.
never buying an Apple product, so I'm quite happy paying $4.99. There's a lot on Apple actually. Hate to say it, $4.99 is a small price to pay for the amount of things that are on there.
Yeah.
What I did was cancel BritBox. I cancelled BritBox
Right.
to justify going onto Apple.
Well, that's what our friend Ross does. He only ever has one streaming service, so one gets cancelled
Oh, wow.
and another one gets bought, and that sounds pretty sane to me. Kirsty,
Yeah.
did you have a recommendation?
Yes, I do. I have another podcast recommendation. Seeing as I'm allowed to kind of go out into the world, and so therefore my listening time is reasonably high at the moment. So I'd like to recommend a folk horror weird fiction podcast called The Silt Verses, which is currently kind of being released kind of weekly. It's on its first season. I hope it kind of continues. It's difficult to explain what it's about. It's a sort of about a kind of alternative America, but it's a bit kind of American gods-ish in terms of there are different kind of deities that are worshipped and sacrificed to in different ways. It's just really kind of visceral and really compelling in a kind of Cronenbergy, Lovecraftian kind of way. I've been really enjoying it. Really nicely put together. So
Cool.
I've just googled it. That looks right up my alley.
Yeah.
I'm Askew. Did they do? Was that?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Too as well.
I don't know. I've not heard that one, to be honest. I kind of stumbled across this one. So once I'm finished with season 1, I'm going to go in and check out their previous work, because it is exactly, it's right up my street as well.
That's another thing about this podcast, is I've genuinely taken on recommendations from everyone else.
Yeah.
And started listening to.
That's been great. Yeah.
Cool. Have we all recommended then?
I think we have. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It's been a wonderful chat, and I think there's more reflection to be done, and we'll do more next week.
Yeah.
Before our spring break. Thank you
Spring
so
break.
much.
Yes.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who kept thinking that.
Yeah.
Spring break.
Spring break.
Yes. So, listeners, that's been
spring break makes me see volleyball players in bikinis, and I don't know why.
I do too, and I don't know why either. But
like an American film thing.
Makes me
Spring
see
break.
like the MTV hosting spring break thing. That's what it makes me think of,
maybe
MTV in the early 90s.
General American awfulness when I hear the
Yeah,
word.
something that I want absolutely nothing to do with.
basically, it's something that's not part of our culture, and we have a very hazy grasp of what the hell it is.
Alright,
It's
well,
in our brains. It's gone into our brains by osmosis.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so there we go.
So-
If we have any American listeners, we apologise
Yes.
for whatever we just misrepresented. Okay, my friends.
Yeah, we're entirely the wrong demographic anyway. So
That's true.
What are you
That's true.
listening to this for?
Yeah, there's no.
Because they want to
Spring
expand
break.
their minds in.
Haven't you got a keg you should be chugging?
Oh dear. On
Oh,
that note,
God.
thank you so much, everybody. We'll be
Thanks,
back
Dan.
next week for more, and hopefully maybe a little bit more considered. Whoa.
Sorry.
Bless you, Ian.
and more healthy.
Healthy next week.
More general health and more consideration of the last year of adventures that we've had.
Yeah,
And
I'm
thinking
gonna
towards the
crawl off and
future.
die.
On
Right.
that note, bye
Bye.
Ian. Bye
Bye.
Stella. Bye
Bye,
Kirsty.
Ian.
Bye
Bye-bye.
listeners. See you soon.
You have been listening to And Now the Podcast Starts. Produced and released by Ambidextrous Solutions Limited. Presented by Kirsty Warrow, T.D. Velasquez, Stella Gaynor, and Ian Winterton. Special thanks to Greg Hume for our original theme music, and to Brian Gorman for our original artwork. All dialogue and music clips from films, TV shows, and trailers are used for the purposes of criticism, in the spirit of fair dealing as defined in UK law, and fair use as defined in US law. No copyright infringement is intended. Please visit our home on the web, www.andnowpodcast.com, for more content and contact details. Or visit our Facebook pages at AndNowPod or at Lee Cushing Pod. Follow us on Twitter at AndNowPodcast or at Lee Cushing Podcast. If you'd like to donate to us, please visit patreon.com/AndNowPodcast. And now the podcast stops.